Hi everyone, in this section we're going to look at creating variables, and we're also going to explore different data types attached to those variables, and then we're going to create a message box and look at how we'd then create an input box to get user input. So I've got the coding window already open with tutorial 3. What we're going to do is, I've already inserted the module, but remember you can go to insert and module. This time though, I'm going to give it a name that will mean something to me. So my standard is, or my convention is, I always start all modules with an M. So this one I'm going to call tuts 3 variables. That'll be something that I can refer to later. Again, we're just going to use sub, or public sub should I say, which means it's available to, public means it's available to all sheets and projects, or all the modules in this workbook. So we're going to call it variable creation. Okay, I'm just going to indent. Actually, I'll keep not indent. What's going off here? Get rid of that restart message. Okay, so as I'm going to be primarily dealing with string variables, because I want the user to put a string value into my message box, or I want to store that message in memory, I'm going to put dim, which is how you declare a variable, so dimension, dim, my string, and then to set it as a different data type, you use as. So basically declare a variable called my string as the string data type. Okay, and then let's then assign my string a value. My string equals, and with character values you have to have a double quotation. Inside those I'm going to put this is my message, and then what I'm going to do is then use the message box command. That will then come up with a whole host of other properties of that message box, such as prompts. So we're going to make the my string variable the prompt. So what we do here is, instead of repeating this bit of code, this bit of text here, I'm going to say my string. As VBA is not case sensitive, you don't need to, you can ignore putting an uppercase in there and it'll automatically correct it for you. So when I hit return, as you can see, it automatically goes to uppercase. So let's go through this again. Let's step into it. So you press F8 to debug. So my string, as you can see at the moment, it's an empty value. There's nothing there. When I go to this line, it's still empty, but when I press F8 and progress to the next one, you can see my string is now stored into memory. So variables store into memory to be used later on, and you can multi-use a variable. You can use a variable, multiple times. So I could then set this message after this line to something else. I'll show you that in a second. So when I then go F8 again, my string, this is my message. So if I then set it again to something else, my string equals a new message. Sorry about my typing today, it's atrocious. Message box again, my string. Let's repeat that line. So if you can understand, each line gets processed one step at a time. So you've always got to put it in order. So you wouldn't put this bit in before that, because what would happen is, without repeating it back to the browser, it'd set a new message there, and then it'd say this is my message, and then it'd basically just print the last known assignment to that variable, which is this is my message. So just bear that in mind, that it is sequential. So let's press F8 again. My string, you can see it's stored in memory. Message box my string, this is my message. You hover over again, this is a new message. So basically that's how a variable is created, and that's how you can assign a value to a variable. You can also use, let's just have another example here. Let's go back down and then let's type another subroutine underneath. That's how you create a separate routine. So let's call this like a film variable creation 2. And this time we're going to do it as a numerical value, so my integer as integer. Okay, and then what I'm going to do is assign my integer the value of 25. I don't know why 25, I just feel like it. Okay, so now you've got the value of 25 in there. So if I had F8 through this, it won't return anything because I'm not printing it back like with the message box. But I know that that value now equals 25 using the debug. So in the next section, I'm going to then use an input box as an integer value. My inputs int as integer. Sorry, put on the next line if I'm doing it over lines. There we go. So I've got two variables now, one called my integer and one called my input integer. So with my integer, that's automatically set to 25, but with this one, I'm going to use an input box, or I'm going to put my input int. So I'm going to set the value of my input int equal to whatever the user enters in this input box. Please enter a number. The good thing about this, about declaring your variables as different data types, is that if I'm trying to pass a string value to that variable, it basically comes with a compiler error because you're not allowed to put anything other than integer values into those variables. So if I tried to put a string, I'll show you how to do this in a minute. So if I tried to put Gary, it wouldn't know what to do with Gary. How can I basically perform an operation on Gary? So 25 plus Gary means nothing to me. But I've not actually said what I want to do with this function. So basically I'm going to then return a message box. Actually no, let's set the value of range A1. So you'd refer to it like you would select it, so range A1 dot, and as you can see, a property of that range is value equals, and then I'm going to say my integer, and let's say multiplied by my input integer. Sorry, let's put that on the right screen. So what I'm saying here is I've got an integer value, my integer, that's always set to 25. My input integer, that's going to be the value of the input box, whatever's returned on that. And then basically what we're saying is the value of range A1 is going to be that 25 multiplied by whatever the user puts in. So let's play this. Please enter a number. So 25 times by 3, that's going to be 75. So if I hit OK and then go to my range, I can see that 75's been created in range A1. I could also use another two, basically when you're testing code, you can use something called an intermediate window to just see what the result of that function would be. So I can then say, instead of putting range A1.value, I could then just copy, let's copy this, and let's get rid of this, and let's put debug.print. You don't need to put equals on in this case because you're just evaluating it. So let's step through my integer, that's going to be 25. My input integer is nothing at this stage until I put 2 in there. We now know that that's 2. 25 times 2 is always going to be 50. Range O1 value is currently 75. That will now be set to 50. Debug.print my integer times 2, so 25 times 2 is going to be 50. And as you can see, not only has it changed the value in cell A1 based on this command line, it's also printed the value into my intermediate window. And I actually, instead of using debug print, I use message box to just return the value. So you could also do message box my integer times by my input integer to 50, and then 50 is back in the intermediate window, and 50 is also in range A1. There's other different types of variables you can create. So you can create, let's go into the next line, types of var, types of variable, sorry, public sub. What am I doing? I don't want a variable there, I want a subroutine, which is an extra subroutine. You can tell the subroutine's been created. You always start it with public sub and end sub. It's been created because it will give you a line break here between them. My type of var, so we've looked at string and we've looked at integer. There's also dim my bool as boolean. So boolean is a true or false value. This is, I've not shown you this yet, but if you want to add a comment next to something, you just use a single quotation mark. So boolean, true or false value, we'll always assign it to, let's assign my bool equals false, yeah. Then you can go dim my date as date, my date equals, and I'm going to use one of the inbuilt Excel functions today. And then properly, we've got integer, we've got long values, so my long, that's a long integer, that stands for, can hold up to a lot more characters than just a normal integer. You can have dim my cur as currency, so it'll store it as a currency data type. And yeah, I'll basically post a whole host of other data types on there, but essentially you declare a variable with dimension and as at the end, so dim the name of my variable to my bool as boolean, then you set the value, and then I've declared another one, and then you set the value again. Normally you set the value so you can use them in some kind of function or some kind of procedure somewhere, but essentially what we've done here is how to create a variable. We've created a message box based on that variable. We've then created a variable and used an input box to then evaluate what that variable would be. Again, if you've got any problems with that, just put something in my comments and I can help you out. But essentially that's what you do. You use variables to store information in memory so you can then use them later on. Just think of a memory plus in a calculator, if you can remember your scientific calculators from school. It's very much similar to that. Okay guys, catch you next time. Thanks for tuning in and subscribe. Please subscribe.